Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1224, written by Abruges, the karate guy that rules my life. When I was between 9 and 10 years old, I used to play football with my friends every weekend. One day, a guy, probably 18 or 19, joined in out of nowhere. He was wearing a karate suit, kimono, and played with us for a while, but he didn't know how to play football, so he just threw karate kicks all around. Random thing. For some reason, I never forgot his face. Fast forward 15 years, I'm at college, and I see this karate dude walking around, and I recognize him immediately. A week after, I decide to take a trip with my girlfriend to a city 3 hours away from home. We go for a walk around the city, and there's a karate guy again. He was sitting in the grass next to a park, kissing another guy. I thought that was weird, and I told my girlfriend about it. She said it was just my imagination. Next week, I traveled with my family to our annual vacation on the beach, 2 hours by plane from home. I went to a party with my cousins at a bar. At some point, I go to the door to smoke, and guess who came through the door at the exact same time? Our eyes crossed for 3 seconds. The karate guy didn't recognize me, but I was tripping seeing him again. Proceeded to call my girlfriend at 3 a.m. to tell her about it. She thought I was becoming insane. Case notes of file 1224. The karate guy that rules my life. I saw in the comments that you explained further, stating that he never aged. To go 15 years without aging from 18 to 33 is conceivable. I myself apparently haven't aged much in that exact same time frame. That said, I don't believe in coincidences as profound as these. That karate guy had some relevance to your life. I think the universe was telling you to get to know him. There's no way to know for sure what kind of importance he had, and I doubt it has anything to do with karate. But it's still important, if you ask me. Or you have your own government spy on your tail, which is pretty cool as well. I don't know which one's better, or more disturbing. Case file number 1225, written by RaedwaldRex, the strange radio message in the woods. I was out at night helping my mate, who was doing filming classes with some bits and bobs and setting up, etc. We were filming an old rundown shed thing that was occasionally used by homeless people for some horror project he was working on. There were 4 of us going all together, and we were all around 17 to 18 years old. Anyway, it's in the middle of the woods at night. I wasn't sure how long we'd be, so I packed a drink, some snacks, and this weird combination of a radio and torch. The radio never worked, ever. Even when new, but the torch was good and was the only torch I had on hand, so I packed it. I meet up with the others. We trudged through the woods towards the old shed. We were walking for about half an hour, and I realized how quiet it was in the background. Other than our talking, there were no sounds whatsoever. No nature sounds at all, nothing. We get to the shed and start setting up. And one of the other guys mentions how quiet it is, and all of a sudden, we hear what could only be described as a pig squealing, before the radio on the torch comes on at full volume with static and a foreign language for about 10 seconds, and then goes off again. Then that disturbing silence again. We quickly filmed what we needed and booked it out of there. Had never been able to get the radio on the torch to work before or since, and I gave up long ago. Still freaks me out how quiet it was though that night. Case notes for file 1225. The strange radio message in the woods. The foreign language aspect is odd. Makes me consider some kind of spy network signal. It's thinking to number stations that were referred to before. Your radio suddenly working lends credence to that too. These number stations, they were just used to dispense certain numbers that were codes, often in different languages. Very anomalous. But of course it's just spy-related crap. As these stations have far more juice than ordinary shortwave broadcasts, it makes sense that your radio could have come to life where it otherwise wouldn't have been able to. Still, the pig squealing is a definite nope from me, and I don't know any explanation to that. Maybe it was a radio broadcast as well and you didn't realize it was coming from your radio, but the lack of any nature sounds could suggest something supernatural. There's a common sign of darkness phenomena where people feel a heavy negative weight around a certain area, and it's accompanied by a total silence, even in deep nature, where you have crickets, cicadas, all kinds of bugs that make all kinds of noise that apparently they're just not around. They are fearful of that. Makes you wonder how these animals and insects know more than we do sometimes. They have a extra sense. Creepy file number 105, written by IB2 Sharp, Ghosts of the Desert. Both my wife and I went camping in a campsite area near a desert ghost town. Went on a weekday, so there was no one around other than the rangers that stopped by near evenings to collect funds. Towards evening, a guy in a van decides to camp near us. A whole area to camp, and he wants to be cozy with us. At night during our campfire, he was sitting in his van with his back door cracked open, just kind of watching. We made a point of noticing him, and we kept on enjoying our night. So during the night, while asleep, I kept hearing someone walking around our tent. It's hard to walk in desert gravel without making noise. I woke up and sat up suddenly, and my wife did the same. As we sat up, the walking stopped. We both just sat there, waiting for the walking to continue. Sat there for an hour and no footsteps. Finally had the balls to get out of the tent to investigate, and no one was around the tent, but the van was still parked at the other campsite. So I went back to bed, and the next morning the van was gone. What's creepier was that there was footsteps all around our tent that did not match ours. I now carry during any camping trips. Case on to the creepy file number 105, Ghosts of the Desert. So in my years of glitch and supernatural readings, still nothing scares me more than the potential evil of other human beings. Perhaps it's the cold and calculating aspect of our own evil. It's not animalistic or circumstantial. It's not in a daze. It's deliberate and malicious. And you never know. That guy could have stopped by and effectively stalked both of you. It may have been an antisocial, awkward guy that didn't realize how strange it is to do that. And then walking around your tent, maybe that was an animal. He didn't consider how it would make you both feel. So all we can do is be as prepared as possible for that cold and calculating evil, should it ever seek us out. Hopefully it never does. And for most people it doesn't, because most people are not. They don't have that evil in them. But the few that do, sour the punch. Bonus file written by Scroll Queen, The Nice Man in the Hallway. Okay, so I don't believe in God, heaven, ghosts, etc. But this was an ongoing thing I couldn't ignore or explain. When I was 7 months pregnant with my first baby, my granddad, the man who helped raise me, passed away. So my daughter never met him, and I honestly never spoke of him much as it was too sad for me. As a baby, she would often wave and smile at our hallway if she sat on my bed. I thought she was looking at flickering sunlight, but then she would wave and giggle at the same spot no matter where in the house she was. When she was a toddler, she would say things like, "No, sorry, I can't play now, I have to eat my brekkie," or "Haha, you're making me laugh." When I asked her who she was talking to, she would just say, "The nice man." So I assumed it was an imaginary friend. This only happened once a month or so. When my daughter was 2, I had another baby, and my mother came to stay with us for a while. And my oldest daughter started talking to this man every day at breakfast, always facing the hallway where the sunlight came in. I heard her telling him about her new sister. My mom was amused listening to her and asked her who it was. I expected her to just say, "The nice man," like she always did, but she looked at my mother straight in the eye, pointed at her, and said, "It's your daddy, Nana. Say hi." My mom dropped the cup of tea she was making and just stood speechless, and I was the same. Like I said, I don't believe in ghosts, but at the same time, my daughter never met him, and if I ever even referred to him, I would have called him just my granddad. My toddler would have never known he was my mother's father. My mom just welled up with tears and said, "Can you tell him I said hi back?" And my daughter just said, "Okay," and continued eating her cereal. It was so freaky, I will never forget it. She's 4 now, and still sometimes says hi to that nice man in the hallway when the sun shines through. Case notes for the bonus file, The Nice Man in the Hallway. I'm starting to believe that most imaginary friends that young toddlers and children have aren't so imaginary after all. the younger a human is, the more their perception can pierce the veil between our dimension and the next one right over. I do think location matters a lot too, though. In some areas, that veil is thinner, so adults are able to peer through as well sometimes. Easier to see through in those places. So if you're a kid in an area that is also thinner, then I imagine for those children, they would see things all the time that don't add up. And it's also why I think not all children end up with imaginary friends, because in some areas the membrane is much thicker and nothing gets through. You can almost think of it as a miracle. It's certainly how your mom must have felt. To have that knowledge, and not just faith, but really knowledge, because of how your grandkid is interacting, to know that your husband is still around, at least a part of him. Amazing. And now time for the fact of the day. During colonial times in America, lobster was so plentiful, and therefore so cheap, that it was often served to prisoners. I like this fact because of how it puts things into perspective, the relativity of luxury. Often comes down to what is perceived as rare, not necessarily what is the best for you or tastes the best. Sometimes the fanciest burger in the fanciest restaurant prepared by Gordon Ramsay is just over-prepared, over-complicated. And sometimes I just want, instead of one perfect, luxurious burger, I just want one simple, charred burger, lettuce, tomato, mustard, ketchup, and maybe 2 or 3 of them instead. Sometimes simple is better. Don't worry if your life is simple and you only enjoy the simple, cheap things, At one point in time, it was kingly. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.